Welcome to Moving Panels One Shot. This is where we're going to have a nerdy little conversation. And today we are actually going to talk about the premiere of the Disney Plus Marvel series Loki. It aired yesterday, and I was, what would be the word here? I was told by this person
Yes,
that
very.
she had to do this episode. And so please welcome, now, do I call you a Loki fanatic or just a Tom Hiddleston fanatic?
We're called Hiddlestoners.
Oh, okay. You got names.
We
All
do.
right.
It's a Tom Hiddleston. That's what Tom Hiddleston fans are called, but I'm also a huge Loki fan, so either one's fine.
Oh, awesome. Well, let me officially introduce you. Please welcome Jasmine Hughey. How are you, Jasmine?
I'm good. Hi, everyone. I'm great. How are you, Laramy?
I'm good. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I really like this episode, and
It was so good. It was so
yeah,
good.
I think it goes right up there. I think it beats out the first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and it definitely beats out the first episode of WandaVision.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a huge Loki fan and a Tom Hiddleston fan. I think this first episode put it all together with Endgame, where he steals the Tesseract.
Oh yeah, no, it ties stuff together, and it's, more so than, I think WandaVision was clearly just a setup for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse.
Yes. Yes.
Falcon and Winter Soldier was to just put a bow on the Captain America story and show where that is now.
And introduce the new Captain America.
Yeah. But this one, not only is it going to set up more for the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but it's also going to set up, I think, a lot more of Phase 4 and where we're moving from here.
Yes, I totally agree. The little hints they gave just in the first episode, I was like, wow, okay, this is where we're going. I'm all right.
Oh yeah, there was a lot, and we'll get into that. But I've got my notes in front of me. We'll discuss a lot of things that I saw, but I have to start, because you being such a fanatic, I have to start. How did you like when he had his clothes removed?
Well, obviously, that was a very nice surprise. That was, I was there for it. Who's not gonna like Tom Hiddleston naked? I mean, it was great. It was great. But that's not the first. It was, and that's not the first time he showed skin in any movie. So it was still perfect.
Yeah. So let's start talking about some of the things in the show. So the first thing that I just completely floored me, the very first thing, was them explaining that there is only one main timeline.
See, that was me.
And so immediately you go to the Captain America thing.
Right.
Which means if there's only one timeline, that means when Steve went back to 1940 to be with Peggy, that means he's always been with Peggy. He's always been Peggy's husband.
Right. And that blew my mind. And also with the whole timeline, how does that factor in Thanos? Were there multiple Thanoses coming back in force?
Well, if you remember in Endgame, they kind of explained, I think they did it with Nebula, and Thanos explained, no, it's one Nebula from different times. Indicating that it's the same. Yeah. It was the same nebula. It wasn't an alternate timeline. It was from the same timeline, just from different points in the timeline.
It just blows my mind. That was so cool how they showed the timeline video and stuff like that. I was like, "Ooh, this is nice."
All right, so let's get into that video. I want to get into that video. First off, did it not give you Mr. DNA from Jurassic Park vibes?
Totally, and I was there for it.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan.
Yeah, and Tara Strong, who was the voice of Miss Minute, or whatever her name is.
Yes.
She even had the Southern accent, just like Mr. DNA did in Jurassic Park.
Exactly. But I like Tara Strong. She's another great voice actor.
So with the whole timeline stuff and with that video, and after seeing what you saw in the rest, and I know there's going to be some mystery that we're obviously going to have in these. There's only going to be 6 episodes, so we've only got 5 more to go.
I know. I'm so upset about that. I need it to be longer.
Do you think that the Time Variance Authority, the TVA, do you think that video, and then there were all these posters all over the walls in the offices, do you think it's all propaganda and this is it's all actually a lie?
That's a good question. I'm on the fence about it. Because in one hand, I hope it's a lie just for Loki's sake and all that. But on the other hand, I don't know. It's just like, is it really true? There were a lot of things, we'll get into it, I'm sure, about the Affinity Stones
Yeah.
that were in the TVA offices, and the Tesseract was just laying around. I'm just like, I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going to go, but I'm on the fence about it.
Well, and see, here's where I'm going with this. So, I am not saying necessarily the TVA is bad. I'm not saying that Mobius, Owen Wilson, we'll get into more with him. I'm not saying he's evil. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I think they're unknowingly following some higher villain's agenda without realizing what they're doing.
Right.
I think it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. I think there's a man behind the curtain.
Right. I thought they were going to bring, oh God, I just went blank. Mephisto, what's his
Mephisto?
name? Starts with the M. Yes,
No,
thank you.
No, dear Lord, no. We've had so the creator of the show, actually, before Loki even aired, he released a statement because of all the stuff with WandaVision and said Mephisto has nothing to do with this show.
Oh, okay.
And he put that out because they had already filmed the first episode. And so the stained glass with the devil on there, he knew that's where people were going to go, but it was clearly just to represent Loki. I mean, as soon as I saw it, the way the horns are coming out the front and curling up,
true,
that's Loki's horns. You could even do the whole, he's the, he fell from the heavens. Right. And all that. So I was just like, no, that's Loki, but yeah, everybody's going to go the Mephisto route. No, I think there's nothing to do with Mephisto. Okay. Now, you could, because they have announced that Kang the Conqueror is going to be in the next Ant-Man movie.
Yes.
So this might be a way to introduce Kang the Conqueror. I don't know. There could be more to it, and we'll get into a little bit more of where I think of that. But I'm also saying this because if you watch the end of the video, and they made sure that it caught your eye. At the bottom of the screen, it said Time Variance Authority Narrative Commission. Right. And the fact that it says Narrative Commission, which means it's a narrative they are trying to push out. Which again is the exact that could be the propaganda. Yeah. And then if there is only one timeline and they do their best to prune the branches, take care of the alternate timelines to get started, then why is there another Loki?
Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
Where has this other Loki come from? And once I thought about that, I thought back to the previews, and they show President Loki. And of course, when I first saw President Loki, I thought, oh, he's gonna become the President Loki. And then it went, no, that's going to be an alternate Loki. They're going to encounter a timeline in which Loki becomes president. Right.
And what I've read is each episode they'll be in like a different time, like you just said. So how many Lokis are we going to meet throughout this series?
But if we are going to meet different Lokis, then again, it goes to that, then how is there only one timeline?
True.
And let me ask you this. First off, did you notice the scroll that was at the desk when he first comes in?
Yes. Yeah. I did.
So of course, I'm not going to get into this, but everything everything's has a scroll in it right now because we're leading to Secret War. That's just completely clear.
Yes, we are.
And then later it was hard to see because it was in the back and it was very blurry, but it looked like another one of the Minutemen came in with, it was a woman that he had.
It looked like Peggy Carter.
And it looked like Peggy Carter.
I thought the same thing. I was like, is that looked just like Peggy Carter walking by.
So that raises some questions. And then, okay. Let's go ahead and get into this part. What I thought was the best part of the show. To allow Loki, who we had to remember, this is the 2012 Loki. This is the Loki who has not had any redemption. This is the evil Loki. To have him experience everything that has happened since in the MCU, all in this one episode, was genius.
Yes, it was. I will say I cried at that part, especially when they went to his mother's death.
Yeah, and Tom Hiddleston's performance in all of that.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
He is such a rounded actor.
especially when he goes
I
back and
yes,
he continues on and he watches Odin claim him as his
yes.
son, and he watches him and Thor become brothers, and then
Mm-hmm.
of course he watches his own death at the hands of Thanos. He reacts to
Right.
all of that without saying a word,
Exactly.
and his facial
And
expressions are just phenomenal.
right. I boo-hooed at that part, and especially when what is Owen Wilson's name? Morbius? Is that
Mobius.
his
Don't put the R in it.
Mobius, sorry. I know. Crap. Um
Morbius is the Matrix. Is
yes,
Mobius.
yes. Mobius was telling Loki that when they broke the White Giants or whatever broke into Asgard in the prison, and he told them where Thor was, but it was actually where his mother was. And his face just like dropped and was like,
Yeah, to find out that he was partially responsible for his own
right,
mother's
right.
death.
And his mom was everything to him.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that moment and the casting. I know Tom Hiddleston's already, he's Loki, but
Right.
pairing him with Owen Wilson,
Was genius.
they work off each other so well.
Yes. They just have Loki has Loki. Okay, Tom Hiddleston is Loki no matter what. Like he was born to play that role. But to put him with Owen Wilson, who is just like a comedic genius and just dry sense of humor, was perfect.
Yeah, I totally agree. A couple of things. So
Mhm.
at the beginning, when we relive the moment from Endgame where he goes away, then we cut to the Gobi Desert, and he comes for some odd reason. The portal opens up midair, and he comes falling down, crashes in. Did you by chance think of Iron Man when that happened?
Yes, I think that was a nod to Iron Man and Robert Downey Jr.
I don't think it was just a nod. I think it was intentional. I think because Iron Man, you got to remember, Tony Stark, before becoming Iron Man, is a bad guy.
Yes.
I mean, he is making weapons of mass destruction, and he's doing it without any care at all. And then, of course, the Iron Man story, the one that kicked off all of the MCU, is his second chance, his redemption story. It's him becoming a hero.
Right.
And so I think it was intentionally done to make that scene look almost just like when Tony escapes the cave, flies off. I mean, you see him coming from midair, crashes down. He's semi-buried in the sand. They even zoom in on him the same way they zoomed in on Tom Hiddleston. And I think it was intentional. I think it was meant to show, hey, this is his second
Loki's
chance.
redemption.
This is his redemption.
That was great.
Yeah, this is his story.
And he finally got a story. Finally got a story. I've been waiting for this for years.
I mean, he's been the villain. Don't give stories to
but
villains.
He's such a lovable villain. Like you feel
but
sorry
for him. He slowly had to become that.
Right.
Well, but that's what, again, going back to what we just talked about, that's what the whole him sitting in the time theater.
Yeah, that was just,
that's what that whole was.
That was just amazing for him, like you said, to go and look at everything he's done and everything he went through, but finally realize, oh, Odin actually did love me,
Yeah. And then, he gets there, and of course he's still trying to be all cocky, like he's better than everybody. And then he learns very quickly that they have control with the
take a ticket.
Yeah. The take the ticket, the I forgot the name of it. Was it Time Switcher? What was the little control that?
Oh, the time switch, yeah.
Yeah, so, realizing he couldn't get away. And here was my thing too, though. The stack of papers that was everything he's ever said.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't he like over 1,000 years old?
Right, so that should have been a lot
I would think
bigger.
that stack would be a lot bigger.
But you know what I loved about the show? It was funny, too. Like, I laughed at that part where he's like, what? And then the guy's like, zzz, and this page, and this page.
Yeah, and then him even questioning whether or not he was like...
He was a robot?
Well, yeah, what if I'm a robot and I don't know it?
And then they're like, this would blow you up. He's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. Which, if you look, there were like scratches, like metal scratches on the side of the things.
Yes.
Okay, but I liked all of that because it already started humbling Loki as he was getting
Yes.
processed.
Because like you said, he's cocky. He doesn't think anything can come at him. He's all powerful. So for me to see him bring it down a level just made him more human to me, even though he's a god. I'm just like, all right, he's not all powerful like he said he is, but even if he was, I'd still love him.
Yeah, and then you already kind of mentioned it. Then to find out that they just keep Infinity Stones in a
Lying
drawer.
around. And they're like, we use them as paperweights here. And his face is like, are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Well, and that's where, yeah, I could do a whole other, like, half of a show just on the score.
Oh, yeah.
That's where, if you listen, the Tesseract, when it's kicked towards him at the beginning, when he steals it from Endgame, you get this kind of like a hum, kind of a whistle that goes with it. And then when he picks it up out of the desk, you hear the same thing. But then when he sees the other Infinity Stones, that whistle goes away. And I really think that was indicating Loki realizing, wow, this is bigger than the Infinity Stones.
Yes. I agree with you 100%. He picks them up and you hear that whistle and then he's like, oh, looking around like there's Infinity Stones. Like, what are they just doing in your desk? And the guy's like, oh, we just use them for paperweight.
Yeah, because they have no power there.
Right. So yeah, like they don't have any power there. But where are they really? Like, I know they're at the TVA, but where are they?
Well, the show kind of made it sound like they're in kind of like a pocket dimension, like they're outside of time and space. In the comic book, it's more implied that the TVA is at the end of time because that's where they came from. So I'll go into a little bit of the background behind the TVA. So the Time Variance Authority is from the comics. They first appeared actually in a Thor comic. It was Thor 372 in October of 1986. The idea behind them is just like they are. They are to maintain the timeline. It gets a little iffy. It was all created by the guy who was the last director. He then creates it. And that's kind of showing that, it kind of shows that loop that they were kind of talking about, because he's called the One Who Remains. That was the name he goes by in the comics, the One Who Remains. When they get to the end of time, he's the only being left, I think. And he decides to create the Timekeepers to maintain the timeline, and he does it right before pretty much time ends. And so the Timekeepers are there to maintain that central timeline, although they're kind of, I'm just going to say this, they're jerks in the comic book, because they are always sending someone into the past as like an assassin in order to stop the Avengers, stop the Fantastic Four, stop whoever from doing something that really kind of threatens their existence, which again leads me into the whole, is what's behind the Time Variance Authority evil or not?
Well, I thought they were evil. The African American woman, especially, she was rough with Loki when he was arresting him. But again, that's Loki, and he's the god of mischief. So
again, she's just the soldier blindly, following orders.
True.
She doesn't question either. Whereas Mobius kind of thinks about, hey, should we do it this way or should we do it that way? Which is, how he gets Loki out of being reset, which is clearly where that was headed. It's just kind of interesting. But
I do have a question.
Okay.
When Loki is on trial, he was quick to say, well, I knew the Avengers were going to come back in time to get the Infinity Stones. But the lady said the Avengers didn't get off that path.
Well, yeah, they said that what the Avengers doing their time traveling in Endgame was meant to happen.
Right. So I was wondering what you thought about that. Because
again,
if you look at it,
that leads me to the same thing about.
Right.
I think that whoever is behind the TVA, which going to that same scene, so Judge Renslayer,
yes,
who obviously they very quickly imply that her and Mobius have a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny. She's from the comics. Even though they didn't give her a first name, in the comics there is a character named Ravonna, I think is how you pronounce it, Ravonna Renslayer. Okay. And she is actually a love interest to Kang the Conqueror.
Oh,
and
interesting.
So there's that tie-in. But the fact that she says, you know, what the Avengers did was approved, you know, it was meant to happen. And then Loki starts questioning that more, and he was like, well, wait a minute. He goes,
right.
You know, he's almost like saying, what are the rules here? Like,
exactly.
I would like to, and he says, I'd like to speak to these timekeepers. And she says, well, you can't. And he was like, well, why not? And it's like, well, no one can't. Like, he's like, have you ever even seen them? Have you met them?
Right.
Which, even though they are actual beings in the comic book, it almost leads me, the way that the MCU kind of twists some of the stuff in the comic, it almost leads me to believe, are they real? And is it again, just like the Wizard of Oz? Is there just someone behind the curtain pulling the strings? And I don't know.
I just thought it was interesting because for Loki, that's what he does. He time jumps all the time. So for him to be like, well, the Avengers can do it, why can't I? And it wasn't fair. So
well, and he didn't even time jump because the Tesseract is the space stone. Yes. So all he did was change location. He never, but it was just because he didn't follow the route he was supposed to go on, which was to be, you know, sent back to Asgard with Thor, and you know, he left that. He made a break off of that timeline. Mm-hmm. Whereas I guess you would say the Avengers stayed within the timeline. They just went, you know, back and forth.
Right.
But he created a whole new timeline. So I don't know.
It was interesting.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to lay it out. So a couple other things, and then I'll just kind of get your final thoughts.
Okay.
Did you get, because I just recently watched a documentary about it. Did you get the DB Cooper reference?
Yes.
Part of me wondered, like, how many people know who DB Cooper is? I'm
a huge mystery fanatic as well. Like, I live for serial killer documentary. You know, I'm that kind of person. But yeah, I knew exactly who that was when he was in the plane in a suit. And
no, I loved it. I absolutely loved to find out Loki was DB Cooper.
Yes, that would, if icing on the cake.
But now
I could see him being that.
Oh yeah, no, it worked perfectly. But here's my question to it: what was the point of that scene?
I don't know. Like, was that
it had nothing
time
to do
variant?
It was because that's what happened in our timeline. DB Cooper in the 70s.
So was that another Loki?
No, it was him. They made that very clear. It was him. It was this Loki, but it doesn't move the plot forward anymore. It doesn't add to the story. The only thing I can think of is the same way you're talking about in each of the episodes, we're going to meet an alternate Loki.
Exactly.
Are we also maybe going to find out that our Loki has been various historical people?
Ooh, that'd be nice.
Like, could we find out that Loki, I mean, he does like knives. Could we find out that Loki was maybe Jack the Ripper?
Oh, yeah, that'd be real nice. Sorry. That's a good point.
I loved the scene, but when I thought about it later, I was like, but why did we need to have that scene? Like, what was important about that scene?
Obviously, it's important, and I guess maybe we'll find out in next week's episode if we meet another Loki.
We shall
see. I guess it's a mystery. It's a mystery, the god of mischief.
Let me also ask, did you catch what some people are saying? I did have to, before I brought this up, I did kind of look online and see if other people thought the same thing. Did you catch the possible Stan Lee cameo?
No, where was that at?
So, you know, Marvel has said that since Stan Lee's passing, they would still find ways to put him into the Marvel properties. And in WandaVision, if you remember, I think it was the 90s episode, his birthday was on the license plate.
Yes.
I don't know of if they even got him into Falcon and Winter Soldier. I know the Venom 2 trailer, when Venom walks into the convenience store, or when Eddie walks into the convenience store and Venom's tentacles are kind of coming out of him, Venom actually picks up a magazine that's got Stan Lee's face on it. So they have ways. there's a part in this when Loki enters like the main room of the TVA, there are these murals on the walls. And there's one mural in which there's a guy standing in the front of like a group of 5 or 6 people. And he's got a mustache, he's got glasses.
Aww.
And a lot of people are thinking that's the Stan Lee cameo. So if you didn't see it, go back and see if you can catch that.
I'm definitely going to go back and watch it. Because Stan Lee, R.I.P. Stan Lee.
Okay, so one last thing I want to talk about, and then I'll let you kind of say your final thoughts.
Okay.
Who do you think the villain actually is? And do you think... Okay, let me ask this in two layers.
Okay.
Who do you think the villain actually is? And who do you think was the cloaked person we saw at the end?
Well, Mobius was saying that they're trying to catch Loki, correct?
Yes, but you've already said there will be
more Lokis.
Variations of Lokis. And
yes,
that's kind of where I'm leading this to.
Is what I heard. So I'm thinking, obviously I don't want to think Loki is the real villain, because I'm Team Loki all the way. That is such a good question. I do think that person in the cloak could be another Loki that we're going to meet.
Do you have a particular Loki in mind? Because I do.
I'm stumped. Who do you think?
I think it's Lady Loki.
Yes, because they did. I do know for a fact there's a Lady Loki in this. Series.
So I'm going to give you my reasons. One from, like you're talking about, casting. Mm-hmm. They have casted an actress who a lot of people believe that she is playing Lady Loki. On IMDb, she does not have a character name, which is obviously because it's supposed to be a secret until it's revealed. And there is a set photo that was released of her is wearing a big coat, but she is in a costume that is very similar
to Loki.
Yeah. So the actress is Sophia De Marinto.
Yes.
Or De Martino. And of course, there's also been the famous shot of Loki sitting talking to a woman.
Right.
And so a lot of people think that's her. Now, that's based off of casting and set photos. Let me give you what I saw in this episode that makes me think it's Lady Loki. First was everybody focused on the stained glass mirror of the demon, of the devil. But no one's talking about the stained glass window that was behind Owen Wilson when he was knelt down looking at the body.
Oh, okay.
That was a stained glass window of Joan of Arc.
Right.
And so if you merge the two together, the clearly Loki, devil...
The horns.
And then a woman who is looked upon as a villain.
Lady
because
Loki.
People thought she was a witch and all that. Which I'll go ahead and talk about this, already leads me to believe if it is her, she's not the villain. The TVA just thinks she's the villain because, again, someone's pulling the strings.
Right.
They're going after her, but you're going to end up finding out that she's actually stealing all of those things because she's trying to make things right.
Oh, that's a good point. I do like that theory.
Now, here's the other thing in the episode. And this is social media was all over this when it got released originally, was the fact that Loki's sex is listed as fluid.
Fluid, yeah.
Which I don't think is necessarily just a reference to our Loki. I think it's showing that Loki, because he is a shapeshifter,
can become whoever he wants.
And then when we're dealing with alternate Lokis, it's showing that the alternate Lokis could be any
gender
sex or race. Yeah, any gender. And so, again, to me, that's another clue that we are headed towards a Lady Loki.
Yes. I knew, like you said, an actress was listed to play Lady Loki because on my Hiddlestoner's fan group page on Facebook, we did talk about a Lady Loki.
And she, on IMDb, she's listed as being in 5 episodes.
Yes.
Which, if you don't count this one, because she's not really seen if she is the cloaked person, then that means she appears next week, and she will be in the whole rest of the series.
So you're probably right as the figure in the cloak or the coat. Oh, I'm excited.
All right, well, let's just wrap this up. I will let you, since you are the big Loki Tom Hiddleston fan, I will let you give just your just let it all out. What is your ultimate take on this series? Where do you think it's headed? How do you think it's doing? What are you excited about? Just go.
Obviously I love this series. I've been waiting for years for Loki to finally have his redemption moment, and this is it, and I'm so excited. I think it's gonna go in a lot of ways to show who Loki truly is. We saw that from the first episode. I'm looking forward to see Lady Loki. I think that'll be such a dynamic, I'm trying to think of the word, not friendship, but partnership maybe, who knows. Anyways, I loved it. I give it an A plus if you're a teacher, because I am A plus. The comedic writing, Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, the casting was amazing, and I just love it, obviously.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
I'm excited to see it go. Again, I was talking with another one of my co-hosts, Chad. I was talking to him about how much we are loving the reverting back to weekly episodic television.
Yes.
Not having everything just dropped on us, so that we can have this, so that we can have the discussions and the what do you think's going to happen next. And that's what makes these so exciting.
Right. And as much of a fan I am, even though I want to be like, I need to see him again. Like, what happens next? It's just the anticipation that I love.
Well, thank you, Jasmine, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this.
It was a thrill.
I could talk about Loki all the time.
I'm sure you could.
I mean, I even named my dog after Tom Hiddleston. His name is Sprocket Tom.
Okay. There you go. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. That helps the show move so much more. And you can hit us up on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok at Moving Panels, or email us, movingpanels@gmail.com. But for today, for Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.